could be flipped tonight for the Phoenix Suns. And yesterday I talked about the Cardinals' ability to be aggressive. And I think there is a fine line between aggressive and just downright reckless. And we saw that yesterday. So let's talk about it all next.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Woo. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like calluses. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What's up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day. However you're watching, however you're following, Sandman, Brian, Aaron in the chat this morning. It is so good to be able to come on here and just spill some thoughts every morning for 20, 30 minutes for all things Arizona sports. There's a lot of things to get to. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment on this video as well. Or don't. I'm not going to beg you. That's not who I am. But it would be kind. All right. I struggled with what I wanted to start off with. The Cardinals or the Suns. Because truly there is it was almost perfect for the Arizona Cardinals, what I was talking about yesterday. Reckless versus aggressive. But then you see what the Suns are doing. And I don't think I've talked specifically about a singular game all year long. Because what has happened with the Suns is outside topics have hijacked the season. I'm not breaking down why Devin Booker and Drew Holiday going at each other tonight is going to be fascinating, because if there's one player that's had Devin Booker's number, it's Drew Holiday. I mean, you could argue the most defining moment of Devin Booker's career was in the NBA Finals, where Drew Holiday is stripping him and they're heading down the floor. Giannis Antetokounmpo's dunking the ball, and that's the NBA Finals series. So you see exactly what the Suns are up to tonight. We haven't talked about breaking those things down and what Ryan Dunn's going to do against Jaylen Brown. Aaron in the chat, I forget. I think it's Wisconsinite. I think that's how you pronounce it. Bucks and 6. I mean, I have so many opinions. I mean, at the end of the day, the Milwaukee Bucks just had the best player in that series, and ultimately that's what's going to happen. But furthermore, there's things to dive into in this game, but even more so than Ryan Dunn and what Colin Gillespie is going to do and when Bradley Beal fits in with this team. I think what's important tonight is the Suns have the ability to flip the narrative of the season, but they can't do it by a close loss to the Celtics. It can't be 105 to 104, and the Suns, by golly, just gave it their all. They've got to win tonight. They've just got to win tonight. And what that looks like is you don't need to beat up on them, but just get the W. And with no Jason Tatum tonight, it doesn't mess up their identity of who they are, and that is chucking up 53s a night. But this is a big game. This is what's going to make people buy back into the Suns. I'll keep my word that I don't know if the Suns, the Suns can't win a championship. They just, as currently constructed, it's just tough for Colin Gillespie to be that guy and come out and be the starter for an NBA championship team. That's just too tough to ask. But what the Suns can do is change the narrative, and potentially in the offseason, we aren't talking about trading Kevin Durant. We're talking about retooling around those two players. because maybe the guys that you need aren't elite level players. Just gritty guys like Colin Gillespie that you need to surround around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, Cody Martin, obviously the two rookies. Maybe it's not about getting as much talent. Maybe it's just about getting guys that fit with those two. That's the narrative that could be changed. After beating up on what is one of the best teams in the NBA, the Cavs, and sure, no Damian Lillard on the Bucks, but the Suns lose that game 3 months ago. Beating up on the Bulls and beating up on the Raptors, not necessarily good teams, but it's flipping the narrative. And tonight, although I will take the Celtics to win, the Suns could flip that narrative. I can't trust them enough to start picking them in these games. But you talk about what the implications are for tonight. You beat the Celtics, even if they're without Jason Tatum, they're still one of the best teams in the NBA. That's when the narrative starts to get flipped. And that's when you start to install fear in other teams. And the Suns become the 9th seed and not the 10th seed, potentially tonight. And for me, ultimately, if you beat up on the Celtics, I say this not so tongue-in-cheek, but the Thunder don't want to see the Suns. It doesn't mean the Thunder aren't better and shouldn't be expected to beat the Suns, but this is Kevin Bleepin Durant and Devin Booker. We talk about the top 3 players in that series. I'm just taking Kevin Durant over SGA still. I couldn't care less about what it looks like right now. There's no world where anyone, I think sanely, picks SGA over a top 10 basketball player of all time. It doesn't mean the Thunder wouldn't win that series, but it installs fear in them. And you talk about bringing Devin Booker into the fold, bringing Kevin Durant in the fold, beating the Celtics. That changes people's mind on the direction of this season. And it's a big game. We haven't talked about that. What the Suns have to do tonight, we talked about this a bit last night on Locked On Phoenix Suns. You can't just give away the ball. The Suns' ability to turn over the ball is, maybe the best in the NBA. But you talk about some of the guys that they have, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, whoever it is, this, that, and the other. Those guys will rain threes. Peyton Pritchard off the bench. Hauser at times could hit the occasional three. You got to chase those guys off the line or make things difficult. And at the end of the day, even if you do all that, they are going to get theirs. What cannot happen is turning over the basketball to the opposing team and giving them free buckets on top of that. It's very similar to football with the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. They're going to score. Don't give them cheap touchdowns over the top of Tyreek Hill. There's no Jason Tatum tonight. You don't got to worry about him dropping his occasional 45 burger. Ryan Dunn's got a tall task. Ryan Dunn at his peak is Jaylen Brown. Now, will Ryan Dunn ever reach that peak? I don't know. But he is what Jaylen Brown would have been. And so, in 4 or 5 years, that's what his peak is. Will he ever reach it? I don't know, but that's what it is. So it'll be fun tonight to see the Spider-Man meme between those two guys going at it, because Jaylen Brown, where Ryan Dunn is now as a rookie, I don't think that they're that far off from when both guys were rookies. And I think that's what Ryan Dunn is trying to reach, that pinnacle of being Jaylen Brown. And he's going to have the task of shutting down Brown tonight, who is a former Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and he's got to step up to the task. We haven't talked about these games in depth before because there hasn't been a reason to do so. They haven't given me a reason to do so. But if they win this game tonight, this is what's going to be more expected. We're not going to talk about, well, where's Kevin Durant going to go in the offseason? We're not going to talk about, whoa, Ryan Dunn, is he going to figure it out ever? Is he going to get off the bench? We're not going to talk about those things. We're going to start talking about games. And listen, it's not impossible, and it's not over for this at this point for the Suns to make a run. Is it likely? No. But could the narrative be changed? Yes. And I talk all this stuff, right? I say everything. I still think the Celtics win tonight because the narrative hasn't been changed for the Suns season yet. But if the Suns come out with a win, that's when I start to give them more credit to beat these other teams. I'm so sorry. I just was going to sneeze a second ago. And so, Brian, thank you so much for telling me that I was muted. But either way, what I was getting to just a second ago is Devin Booker's coming into here. Things change. Overall, this team, expectations change. I don't expect them to win tonight, but if they do win this game, that is when things start to change and I start giving them more credit. And then the Devin Booker side of things, Drew Holiday's coming into town. That is a guy that has owned Devin Booker his entire career. What better way for our confidence-wise is better for Devin Booker to come in and have a really good game? And again, here's what I know for this team. Booker and Durant both have to be awesome. This is not one of those games where Durant could just save you and drop 40 points because the Celtics will still make it almost an insurmountable amount of points that you have to score with just one guy. They're that good. And if the Suns come out and win this game, then we're talking about a different season. And that's where it's at. Everyone in the chat clowning me this morning because I decided it'd be a good idea to mute myself while I was talking. But either way, that's what happens. It's 6 a.m. in the morning. Cut me some slack. Let's move over to the Cardinals. Yesterday, I was talking about being aggressive, right? And I had said that the Cardinals have had a B- offseason. And it is a little frustrating at times with just having a B- season because of how much money they've had, the expectations to be fairly good this year. Those are the things that for the Cardinals that you have to see. You have to make that next leap. And so although I didn't want them to do what an opposing team did this year in the offseason, I wanted them to be a little bit more aggressive. And that includes, like I had mentioned before, a Micah Parsons, a Trey Hendrickson. Just make the phone call. Make an offer. Whoever it is. Cooper Kupp. I was into that idea. You have all this money in the world. Spend it. Use it or lose it. And as much as I liked the additions of Josh Sweat and Dalvin Tomlinson, I wanted the Cardinals to be aggressive. But there's a difference between being aggressive and reckless. And a team that had the most money this offseason to spend was the New England Patriots. And I think that they're a clear example of reckless. And this is not what I want the Arizona Cardinals to do. Did you see the contract that they gave Stephon Diggs? It's like 3 years, nearly $70 million, and like nearly $30 million guaranteed. That is a monstrosity of a contract. He wouldn't get that contract in Madden, coming off of a torn ACL and over 30 years old. I mean, that's reckless. That is not what I want the Arizona Cardinals to do. The Patriots now moved in to this offseason having two players that are massively overpaid. I understand they're not paying their quarterback anything, but still, $30 million guaranteed for a wide receiver who not only wears out his welcome, other teams could have had him. They said, we're good. And at the end of the day, it took weeks for him to sign. I would be surprised if any other team got anywhere close to what the Patriots offered Stephon Diggs. And I don't think Stephon Diggs would normally take the Patriots for a contract or to play with them if they didn't offer him this massive of a deal. And I think if that's the case, whenever you do things strictly for money, it never works out accordingly. And so when you see the massive triple-digit contract that Milton Williams got, or just about or just about triple-digit contract, that is insane. Stephon Diggs getting the money he got, ridiculous and gross mismanagement. And they have the money, but it doesn't mean you need to spend it all recklessly. And that's not what I want the Arizona Cardinals to do. I don't want them to be a New England Patriots. They had a solid offseason, B-. I wanted it to be higher. I wanted them to be more aggressive. But again, there's a difference between being reckless and being aggressive. Reckless is the Patriots. Overpaying Milton Williams, grossly overpaying for Milton Williams, grossly overpaying for Stephon Diggs. That is not the mold of the Cardinals offseason. But take a chance. Call on Micah Parsons. Potentially overpay a little bit for Trey Hendrickson, a guy who led the league in sacks last year. Make that extra call. See what it would take to get Jair Alexander. Go get Denzel Ward. Solidify this defense. I'm not asking you to just spend money willy-nilly like the New England Patriots. What I'm asking you to do is to be aggressive, not reckless. And you want to know who's a great example of that? The Washington Commanders. If Deebo Samuel doesn't work out, they give up a 5th-round pick for him. It didn't cost much. They go out and selectively get the guys that they need to help solidify their roster. That makes sense. What the Patriots is doing is just stupid. And I think Aaron in the chat makes a really good point. Maybe Monty Ossenfort is just too effing passive, which is frustrating. That's not what I want to have in my general manager. Although at times Howie Roseman's gunslinger mentality does get him in trouble. I think oftentimes people don't talk about some of the whiffs that Howie Roseman has. But there's a difference between that and what the Patriots are doing, which is just gross, reckless spending and not even spending it on positions that they need. I mean, their offensive line was atrocious last year. Joe Thuney was on the market, and they said, we're good. Let's go give $70 million to Stephon Diggs. So that's not what I want for the Cardinals, right? I don't want them to sign Cooper Kupp for no matter what, right? Regardless of what happens, regardless of what the money gets to. And, I mean, we're talking about an offseason that Josh Sweat is good, but Dalvin Tomlinson kind of fell in their lap. And maybe Monty still has another ace up his sleeve. But what I know is that this team needs to be more aggressive. Maybe it's moving up in the draft. Maybe it's going and doing something as crazy as going and getting Abdul Carter. I don't know. I'm just making up things. But this sitting back and letting things come to them in a make-or-break season for not just Kyler, but for Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, I don't understand that idea. Now, would I rather them be the Cardinals than the Patriots? 100%. Because what the Patriots are doing is just crazy town. Just absolute crazy town. I cannot believe some of the contracts that they've given out. Just insane. Even Harold Landry. I know he's got a relationship with Vrabel, and that contract is not egregious, but still, what people forget is there's a reason why he was cut. So, I'll be curious to see what the Arizona Cardinals continue to do. And in this draft that kind of lacks superstar talent, regardless of who they draft, it could feel like a little bit of a dud. And going after a guy that you potentially don't need, like if you're planning on being aggressive in the draft, like Tedoroa McMillan, I've advocated for him at times. I would much rather a pass rusher. But if he falls to you and if the board, it happens, whatever. Shedeur Sanders to Tedoroa McMillan, those aren't aggressive draft picks. Those are risky draft picks. So that's not even what I'm talking about either. But moving up and targeting your guy, because that's what I would rather do. And I get the, you got to pay Trey McBride, but those are things that you already had to do. So the Cardinals offseason, I've got no issues with wanting to be smart, but I do think that there is a too passiveness mentality that Aaron had pointed out from Monty Ossenfort that is a little frustrating. I don't want him to be the Patriots, but it would be nice to see him be the Commanders. Go and be aggressive, selectively get who you need, build up your offensive line, continuously get weapons for Kyler, and raise the floor of this defense. But I think it was perfect. Yesterday, what I talked about, the aggressiveness versus passiveness, I think what is more in line with what I was trying to say yesterday is aggressiveness versus recklessness. Don't just spend money to spend money. We saw this a couple years ago with the Patriots, and they clearly didn't learn their lesson when they went and signed Jalen Mills and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, and it didn't work out for them at all. 0 playoff wins. And it seems like they're just running it back. So, that's crazy town. I just, regardless, on an off-topic, non-Arizona Cardinals thing, giving $70 million for a over 30-year-old torn ACL, wears out his welcome wide receiver, it's almost like there was no thought process being done there. Or, even worse, they panicked because their wide receiver room is not very good anyways. Or, even worse, they worry maybe Travis Hunter doesn't fall to them. I don't know. But with all due respect, just a weird offseason for the New England Patriots. And it's not something the Cardinals need to replicate. They need to replicate the Commanders. All right, guys, thank you so much for making me a part of your day. Fiery, fun topics today. I'll be hosting Locked On Phoenix Suns tonight. Solo, we'll be going over the Phoenix Suns maybe win tonight. So don't forget to check that out later tonight. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching the show, guys. All of you guys in the chat, AZ Sports Guy, who I think is somewhat new. I haven't seen him around. Sandman, Aaron, I believe it was Michael in the chat earlier, or I think it was Brian. So I appreciate you guys being here, talking all things Arizona Cardinals with me. Excited to continue to talk with you guys. All things Arizona sports tomorrow. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show, 6 a.m. Every morning, Monday through Thursday, I guess I should say. Talk to you guys then, and until tomorrow, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.